This is not a video about the perfect chicken tikka marinade. I could give you a 24-hour yogurt-based marinade that produced my best chicken tikka skewer out of 100. But if you only have 30 minutes, you gotta ditch that recipe real quick. What you don't need to ditch is the spice mix. Approach this as a starting point in ratios rather than measurements, and ditch whatever you don't like or don't have. It's difficult to guide on how much to use, so start off with a teaspoon of spice mix per thigh and work your way up to a tablespoon and see where your taste lies. If you do go too hard, you can always add more fat to the marinade to mellow things out. I tried a few variations of spice mixes, but left two constants, red chili and turmeric powder. I tried coriander and cumin separately, and the combination of the two spices won out in my opinion.
They're just such good partners, you know?
I also felt that freshly roasted garam masala added so much to the recipe.
I can eat that one a lot.
I tested adding sugar and amchur powder, but didn't really like what they offered in large quantities. Although the tandoori powder I used in the final iteration has both in small quantities, and it's pretty great. Two optional ingredients you will probably never use is dried hoja santa leaves in place of kasuri methi, and the spice responsible for those beautiful pink al pastor tacos in place of red food coloring. And if you don't want to make a spice mix, this tandoori powder will stand on its own just fine. Let me know if you have any favorite spice recipes or brands you use in the comments. Cool, we got a spice mix. Yay! See, nobody cares, okay? Because a marinade consists of three different elements: flavor, acid, fat. Flavor flavors the food, like you'd expect. Acid flavors the food too, but more importantly, it breaks down the surface of the meat to create more meat pockets and make everything a little bit more tender, right? Meat pockets. And fat carries all those flavors into those little pockets that the acid made and sticks the flavor onto the surface of the meat. Flavor, acid, fat. Now, marinades do not penetrate the chicken. No acid, fat, or spice mix is going to penetrate past the first few millimeters of that meat. Think of it as flavor stucco that we're trying to stick to the walls of the chicken. This is chicken without a marinade. And this is chicken with the marinade. And this is the view that my neighbor stole from me, that son of a... The longer the chicken sits in the marinade, the more it soaks into those first few millimeters, creating a really deep, strong flavor. Despite the limitations of our marinade, there is one flavor that can penetrate the chicken if given enough time: salt. But salt doesn't just flavor the chicken. If left to steep in the chicken for more than 6 hours, it will dissolve the chicken's protein strands into a gel, allowing them to absorb and retain more water. Juicy, flavorful chicken? Yes, please. I'm going to need you to salt and brine your chicken a day in advance and then marinate it for 24 hours for that perfect chicken tikka skewer. We don't have time for that, and you're lazy. So what we can do, if we're planning at least 6 hours ahead, is to salt the chicken liberally in the beginning of the marination process. It's always good to salt your chicken, but if you do it 30 minutes in advance, it's only going to affect the outer wall.
Salted. It's deep, it's in there. Just newly salted. It's only on the surface of the meat. It doesn't go to the rest of it. It's obvious.
Other great flavor drivers of this marinade are greens like cilantro and mint. I made this chutney a few days before and it was great, but normally I would have just chopped up some greens and added it to the mix. Two other flavor drivers you need to put in your marinade are ginger and garlic. This is a non-negotiable. You either put ginger and garlic, why am I doing that accent, in the same marinade, or we don't have a deal. Okay? Yeah, look, I know that there's zing bang, zing boom, zing bang in the marinade. And I know it does the same thing as the acid, it denatures the surface proteins. I get it. But just keep that in mind when you're writing the acids contract. I don't know what voice I'm doing. Somebody get me a daiquiri. Acid flavors our food. What is life without a squeeze of lime on a taco? But in a marinade, acid's primary role is to karate chop the shit out of the meat surface proteins to tenderize it and create more surface area. This results in a soft, tender surface ready for any flavors you throw at it. But leave it too long and you get kind of a mushy chicken, so we gotta be careful. Let's discuss the common chicken tikka practice of a two-part marinade. The first marination is commonly salt, garlic, ginger, and an acid. Leave that for about an hour, hour and a half, and then go in with our oil, flavor, and yogurt. I tested 3 acids, the first 2 being lime and white distilled vinegar. Both being pretty aggressive tenderizers, I wanted to see the effect of using these 2 acids in the beginning and the last 30 minutes of a 6-hour marination. After 30 minutes, the early marination worked aggressively and quickly, tearing apart the meat almost immediately. There was a visible difference between the parts of the meat that were previously attached to skin versus sides that were cut, so I'd imagine a whole piece of tandoori chicken would hold up much better than a small chicken tikka. The pieces with no acid saw little denaturing from the ginger after 30 minutes. I then added yogurt and oil-based marinades to test how these acids paired with lactic acid and let them sit for 6 hours total. For my late additions, I added vinegar and lime to the chicken 30 minutes before grilling. I also did one skewer with no yogurt and one with no acid whatsoever.
Why is this one the best one?
Adding acid early created an incredibly soft and slightly mushy chicken after 6 hours.
The lime straight up just fell apart. It like melted. It melted. It was not a good texture.
This is great if that's what you want, or are dealing with a really pungent, gamey chicken breed that's only cured by an acid bath, or you're dealing with big pieces of meat. What do you prefer, big or little chunks of meat? I did find that vinegar's taste held up better over a long period of time than lime's did. After a while, it started to kind of taste a little bit like, whereas vinegar continues to taste like vinegar throughout the entire process.
I think it's much better than the lime.
What acid do you usually prefer? Lemon, lime, a different kind of vinegar like rice wine vinegar? If you're doing a short marinade, using any kind of vinegar or citrus early on in the marinade is going to be just fine. I just wouldn't add too much. Anything up to 6 hours, you really have the choice of adding it at the beginning or the end of the marinade, depending on how soft you like your chicken. 6 hours is when yogurt and salt really start to do their magic. So I would use an alternative fat if I only had 2 hours to marinate, and I wouldn't hit it with an acid until the end of that marination. Any additional time up to 24 hours is really going to embed and concentrate those flavors onto the surface of the chicken. So go overnight for the best flavor. After watching this and knowing who you are, what's your go-to marination tactic? Let me know in the comments and I'll cook the most interesting one in a short just to see how it tastes. I wonder if it will include any of the alternative fats I tested in a quest to find out if yogurt really is the king of marinades. Our first contender is Hun or Greek yogurt. Yogurt that has little water content as possible. Next, I wanted to test cream, like Madure Jeffrey uses in her silken chicken tikka recipe. For our vegan options, I chose the fatty nut cashew. And finally, the egg. Specifically, soaked and blended cashews and mayonnaise, which is just eggs blended with oil. Our fats are flavor drivers. They grab up all their flavorful friends and stick them to the outside of the meat. Yogurt is our only fat up here with lactic acid, so they all got the same early lime bath, additional oil to lube the marinade, salt, ginger, garlic, and a basic spice mix, and left to marinate for 6 hours.
Yogurt, cream, nuts, mayo. I'm gonna go with the yogurt first and see how it did. It's not bad. I'm gonna hold my thoughts on yogurt. Let's do cream now. It's creamier. Cream is just really silky and smooth. Nut, let's look at the nut. The cashew doesn't really do much. It doesn't stand in the way. It's very neutral. Let's go with mayo, see what mayo does. It's this creaminess that really gets delivered through the mayo. A richness. The mayo is just the juiciest. So I have to say my two favorite, cream and mayo. Yogurt is just, I don't know, man. I don't know. Yeah, it's got that tanginess. It doesn't lift me up. It doesn't make me want to dance. It doesn't want to, you know? Maybe I'm just impartial to it.
I have a confession to make. I hate yogurt marinades. Okay, there's something about this like tart layer that's caked between me and my delicious chicken tikka. Oil is just so much better. It's just like a clean finish. Mayo and cream made things so creamy and delectable. So why would I want to deal with yogurt? It's bullshit. So before I end this video, I'd like you to comment below how you think that out of all the 100,000 skewers that I made,
All right, I can eat more chicken.
how is it possible that my favorite one was actually a 24-hour yogurt marinated skewer? I'll give you a hint. It's all in the technique.
I'm vegetarian now.